How's it going, everyone? I am here with the number one Fraser Conservative National Party candidate for the Senate in Victoria, a Mr. Bruce Stevens. So the most important candidate in Victoria, arguably. Who knows how we're going to go in this Socialist Republic of Victoria, but here is someone that you do have a chance to vote for if you want to vote for Senator Fraser and you are in Victoria. Thank you so much for joining us today and answering a few questions. Just tell us about who you are, what you stand for, and what you'll do if you manage to win a seat and potentially with the balance of power in the Senate.
Okay, I'm an electronics technician and maintenance officer at an aged care centre. I've been in that role for nearly 7 years. Prior to that, most of my life was as an on-the-road technician in electronics and security. For 6 years, my wife and I were Salvation Army officers, and we had one appointment in Tasmania.
Yep. So what made you want to get into politics, and what do you want to do if you actually get in?
Well, for many, many years, I've been very concerned about where this nation's headed. We are pandering to the UN and giving the UN everything that they want. And I firmly believe that the agendas that they have in place and the agreements that we've signed are softening this nation up to accept Islam and as a controlling influence in our nation.
And I mean, I understand that you obviously Islam is a problem. From our point of view, or from my point of view and the point of view of my colleague David Hiscox, who is unfortunately here today behind one of the cameras, we see obviously Islam as a major issue because of the ideology because of what the ideology actually espouses in that, conquer the Kafir wherever you see them. Essentially, that's what they say. But we also see the UN agenda of ethnic replacement of European peoples, not just in Australia, but in the European homelands, America, Canada, all across, as a much bigger issue, because obviously Islam is a problem, but we can get rid of Islam if we need to. If we are ever made extinct as a people, then that's basically game over. So do you see that as a major issue that you want to stand against, or is it just Islam?
Well, the problem with the population situation is that our homogeneous population is declining because of the Marxist socialist agenda. Abortions are extremely high. We're not populating as we once did. I remember my mum saying, there was an adage back then, populate or perish, and she had 6 kids. Of which I'm the youngest. Now, my wife and I, we only had 2 kids. So there's the population decline. And unfortunately, we've allowed people into the nation who have an ideology that wants to take over, and they don't care about how they do it, but their main method of doing it is by increasing their own population. And eventually, you get a tipping point whereby, the natural population of the area is gone. We see that across the world. We've seen that in many places.
Well, one of the things that we are highly concerned with, and it's something that you sort of have to have your eyes open to, and Fraser has touched on it. Thankfully, he's probably the only politician in my entire life who's touched on it, other than maybe Pauline Hanson, but he's gone by the ways. Like you said, we're losing our homogenous nation, and it seems like only white nations, only nations of European ancestry are expected to become minorities. We're the only ones who are expected to have this, so quote unquote, diversity. And I've always said that if diversity is such a strength, then why aren't other countries given the great blessing that is diversity? And the other thing is, why is it that white European peoples aren't allowed to advocate for our own people? I mean, you've got outright black nationalists like Louis Farrakhan, who he got banned from Facebook, not for being a black nationalist, for being an extreme guy, but he is quite extreme. But even Japanese people, they're not expected, they're allowed to have their own in-group preference, and Indian people can have their own in-group preference, but not white people. So would you do anything to promote white pride in their own heritage and their own culture and where we came from, because we have such a proud history. I mean, we essentially created the modern world. So would you be fighting to wake our fellow people up to the fact that we do have a lot to be proud of and we are a people?
Well, I struggle with that a little bit because you keep using the word white, okay?
Yeah.
And the old policy of white Australia policy that our previous governments used to follow was never actually a white Australia policy in the generic white term. We, thousands of Europeans immigrated to this country. Greeks, Italians, Yugoslavs, very, very few white people. Yeah. And they built this nation into the culture that we have today, the Australian culture.
Yeah. Sorry, I tend to agree with you. But when we use the term white, it's a generic term for European peoples.
Unfortunately, as soon as you use the word white, you alienate the left because they just call you a racist.
I don't care.
Okay, well, I don't care what they call me either. Yeah. But I just like to make the clarification that white is not just white,
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand that, and I have some people come up to me and say, well, it's quite confronting to use that term. But for me, I do it because I want people to be confronted with that right there. And for me, it's, white just equals people of European ancestry. You can say Anglo or Celt or whatever it is. And yeah, like you say, we had Italians come in who fought in World War One. I think there would have been... I don't know how many actually did, but they came in after World War One, and they did help us build. And they didn't come in when there was a welfare state, and they didn't come in when the government was all controlling, and it was sort of they came in much smaller numbers as well. So they didn't actually threaten the homogeneity of our country. They tended to integrate fairly well. But what we have now are people from South Asia and East Asia and Africa and the Middle East, all coming in and creating their own ethnic enclaves. So I use the term white to distinguish between the European peoples and non-European peoples. I know it's confronting, and I know people are going to call you a racist, but racist is just an anti-white racial slur, so I just dismiss it. It's not a word that I accept.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I've lost my point.
No, you're right. It's our favourite, me and Dave's favourite conversation. That's why we're doing it.
What I notice a lot from the left is they don't want any white people coming into the country. Yep. They only want people from the Middle East.
Yep.
When the suggestion was made to the Greens by I was watching an Ericsson Neil Ericsson video where he'd confronted some Greens, and he said to them, why can't we have white African farmers coming here? Okay, because they're being decimated, genocide.
Physical genocide with violence
exactly.
At this point.
Why can't we bring them into the country? Oh, they're white.
Yeah.
And the person standing there talking to him was white.
Yep.
And like that to me just is stupid.
Yeah.
But why? I saw a meme that said, it takes a special kind of intelligence to import thousands of welfare recipients that want to kill you.
A special, I would call it a special
kind of intelligence to want to import thousands of,
What you'll notice with a lot of these people is they tend to not live in the areas where they go to.
Yes.
Either. A lot of them are in the eastern suburbs in like Hawthorne or wherever. I don't know much about that, but I know that you go to like St Albans and that sort of area, or even Springvale. A lot of them have moved out of Springvale. A lot of these hardcore lefties live in Brighton, to be honest. That's where a lot of the biggest doctor's wife virtue signalling come from. Same with Northcote. Northcote, you go through there and it's sort of, maybe it's a little bit more multicultural with sort of a few more Asians than otherwise, but it's still fairly white as well. Yeah, these people never suffer the ramifications or the consequences of their own policies.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good conversation.
Yeah.
Bruce Stevens.
I don't know that I'm being interviewed.
No. We like to make good content and all that kind of thing. Well, do you have anything that you want to add? Like anything you want to tell the voters of Victoria? Why should they vote for you?
we have got to stop what's happening in Victoria. We have safe schools, which is not safe for kids. You know, telling a 4-year-old that they can gender transition into the opposite sex if they wish is just mind control and child abuse. You know, and these are the sorts of things that the Marxist agenda is just throwing at our youth. And the only possible thing that I can think of that's causing it is that they want our population to reduce further.
It's abortion, that kind of stuff,
and euthanasia, all that sort of thing is just a way of depopulating the Anglo-Saxon.
That's exactly right, and that's what we're talking about, and that's what we're fighting against.
Population.
We have the right to exist. Are you game enough to say the 14 words on camera?
What are the 14 words?
We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children.
We must.
Secure the existence of our people.
We must secure
the existence of our people
and
a future for white children.
Future for white children.
Well, there you go. You have it. Confirmed Nat Z. Confirmed Nazi right here.
No, like,
that's what it's funny they say that.
I was trolled by my nephew.
Yeah.
And he called me a fascist and a Nazi and all sorts of things. And he has, obviously these people who call you all these words, have no understanding of what they're even saying.
They don't know what they
Fascism and Nazism are of the left.
Yeah, they're socialism.
Okay, they are based in the Marxist socialist agenda, and they have nothing to do with freedom of voice, freedom of politics, freedom of business, freedom, to survive.
Well, if you want to know how to counter them, it's like I said before. If someone calls you a racist, you say, well, that's just an anti-white racial slur. What problem do you have with white people? They call you a Nazi. Same thing. That, again, is just an anti-white racial slur, unless you're calling me a socialist, which I'm not, because it's National Socialism. Because that's all they do. They only ever use it to slander people of European ancestry, especially Anglo and Northern European.
My response to white supremacy, when they say that it's not okay to be white, I say it's okay to be white.
He says it. 14 words and it's okay to be white. Look at him. He's an edgelord.
No. I'll give you the punchline. I'm white and I'm okay. Are you okay?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you very much. We'll make an edgelord boomer out of you yet, Mr. Bruce Stevens. I'll see you around, everyone.